So by now you might know our idea of debates, and you might not all. So our idea is that we start with the films that are give us ideas to talk about broader subjects, and we will be getting to the word controversy in a minute, but maybe there's another word that is very, very dear to us and even closer to the movies you made, which it would be politics. And one thing we would be interested in is finding out how politics is interesting to you as filmmakers, and if it is, and whether we'll be going into making films politically or making films about politics. Maybe you can illuminate us a little bit about your take on this very broad subject, but I think dear to both of you. Did you get a microphone yet? Okay.
Yeah, actually I don't think there are unpolitical movies, so every movie is political in a way. Actually it's something important for me, so I like, it's the basis for my filmmaking, my understanding of politics for sure, and especially also really for the filmmaking itself, for the making, for the process of making, how to make a film, how to work together with people, how to organize a set. That's the first thing political about my filmmaking. I think so. Yeah. Try to work as much as possible with no hierarchy. Thank you. And for example, that's tough. That's tough, and that already catapults you out of the classical ways of how to produce a film in Germany. It's just it's hard to explain why, and also organizing a film set in a different way means I'm in film school, still in film school in the Deutsche Film- und Fernsehakademie, and there you learn exactly how to make a film. It starts with exact Drehplan, when to shoot which picture on what day and what moment, and when you try to do it differently, the whole concept of how to produce a film that we learn is upside down. So that's yeah, exactly. So I would answer as one aspect of my filmmaking. It's how to make a film. That's interesting for me, very important.
I would say, I would agree that every film is political, but not every film is political in an interesting way. So we would have to find interesting ways to make films respond to political questions. And I don't think that you need to depict things that are like politics in film. So a political film is not necessarily, obviously not necessarily a film that is about the parliament or or about politicians or anything. But at the same time, I don't think it's enough in the long run if we just say we make films in a political way, but we never show institutions, we never show how power is being used in modern day, and so on. So my feeling was it's especially, I mean, in what the standard movie in Germany is, I think, is Boy Meets Girl or Boy, Mother and Son. I don't know. It's basically it's family stories, and there's something difficult. But I mean, it's rarely about institutions. And I had the feelings that we need to address institutions. And my film was at least a small step in this direction to try to find a more or less panoramic vision of workspace and for example and structure and so on within the frame of a fiction film that indeed does use a lot of tropes we know from cinema.
Barbara, as you're as well a filmmaker, could you explain us your position to it? There are, of course, At least there's one very famous quote, which is by Godard, that it's not about to do political films, but to do films in a political way. But as well, Christoph was mentioning this it should be interesting. Not all films are political, but not in an interesting way. So what is for you a film which is political in an interesting way?
No, I think this question, you can't really answer this question, I think. Because what is interesting or what is a film? I mean, it was very interesting when we saw your film. There was the audience there was mumble something, I don't know, something was wrong, I don't know, but someone asked, is it a film? And in this moment I thought, okay, this is really a political film because it is shot like as if it seems for someone, at least for someone in the audience, that it's not a film. So this was very interesting for me because I realized, okay, we are so conventional and how we, so there is at least one person in the room who thinks, okay, film doesn't look like this. And so I thought, wow, that's cool. So in this moment I realized that it worked, that you really made a political film. So for me it's very, very, I don't know, it's very important also to use a different way of film language to be political, but I really understand because it's a dilemma. I've been into this dilemma. I wanted to make a political film, but it's very difficult. You can't sit in front of your white paper and think, okay, I want to do a political film, because I think this is not the way how it works. I think you have to be really angry, you have to be really involved into something, and then you have to find an audience, you have to find characters you love and you want to tell your story with. So, big question. Maybe this was the question you asked yourself, Christoph. How can I get to the audience by telling a story, maybe a more conventional story? I mean, how I tell it with the convention of, I don't know, of characters, of filmmaking, how I think the big movie theaters would show the films, but I can get to a political sense or to statement. But I think it's really difficult. So this is just these are some thoughts about this. Maybe maybe you want to say something.
Maybe you can say something. I mean, you don't maybe know Florian Hoffmann yet. He's a student at the DFFB and also has something about politics today to say, but he's also, most importantly, for now, a documentary filmmaker, so there's another aspect of making a political film.
Well, to be honest, I do not really go along with this really common opinion that like every film is political. It's for me, it's like a film is political if I leave the movie and I have a question in mind, or at least some conflict with myself. So I think like when you grew up in this world, especially like as young filmmakers, there's already a lot of things that already consist and you're surrounded by, and I think it's really like easy to just accept that like as the world we live in. And I think what is political, or like the political discussion or action, starts when you start asking questions about this world you just live in and just try to look behind.
But I mean, if I see a Transformer movie, I have questions too. I mean, I don't think there are films out there that don't raise questions. So is it, I mean, what kind of questions and to what end? I don't know.
But maybe it's more like an individual thing, Maybe it's like, a movie that is political for me is like, does not have to be a political movie for you.
True, but maybe we could come back to the other word, which is controversy. If you would ask me how would I define politics, I would say politics is about struggle, controversy. In a decent way, in a civilized way, because if it's not civilized, it's war. So politics is a kind of civilized war. And it's a good thing, struggle. So one could see the film of Jan as a film where the struggle is inside the movie. I try to simplify it very fast, of course, it's a simplification. The struggle in your film is inside the movie, the struggle in Christoph's film is outside the movie. Maybe. Could we agree on that, or where couldn't we agree on that? Maybe we start before we ask the filmmakers, because we are talking with the filmmakers, but we could ask you as well as the first spectators, observers who are able to comment on this.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the question is interesting, what is political, although, because this is the beginning. I mean, for me, a political film is a film that shows something about the world, about a character, about a man, about a woman. What I think is not conformism or conformist, but also gets me other ideas. Like when I see your film, for instance, you tell me something about the space we live in. So this is this is interesting. I feel there's also you are angry that we accept the space we live in, and so I get a new view just on the spaces we live in, okay? And so and in your film, I think you play also with this man-woman. I mean, I would like to fight a bit with you about that, but but this is but because it's really interesting how you play also with the gender in the film, or don't play, I don't know. But it's interesting that for me, I mean, of course, there are first is. We know films like House of Cards. We know TV series like House of Cards. We know some. It's already some convention thing when I start to see the movie, but then later in the movie, so I would not agree that it's on the outside. Then also with the music and also with in the end of the movie, I think you really destroy also something that you built in the beginning of the movie, which I find is also. There's also a new way on how you look on the characters into the spaces, and you do very similar things as you do. So it's interesting to see the two films in one show, one evening. So there was really for me a connection, a strong connection, obviously.
You're talking about space, and I think that's one major connection also between your two movies. And I mean, in Christoph's work altogether, architecture, and obviously it's a main theme in interesting filmmaking, how to show space and the relationship between space and the people who live in it, and the political aspect of space. Maybe you could, Christoph, tell us a little bit about your concept of integrating or working with the architecture in a political setting.
Well, yeah. well, first of all, I think when we make a film, we have to rely on physical appearance. I mean, that's what we can record, which leads us to architecture, because I mean, we have to find crystals of time, so to speak, things, objects that reflect our existence, and a city, a space, or the space of retail. Is of course reflecting our society, our system, how our beliefs and so on. So if you film a city, you have immediately an image of how to use it, and for whom it is built, and who wants to be seen, and who has to hide, and so on. I mean, so I mean, to even show a city is a political thing, absolutely. So, but I don't know if I can explain a big concept, but I wanted to come back to this note on convention. But I would strongly defend convention, because I think only in a vessel of convention you can see the aberration, you know. I mean, because and that's where it becomes interesting. Because if you make a film that basically does not show you the set of rules, there's very little controversy for me, you know, because if there's no set of rules, how can I be against your film? I mean, because you know, I mean,
in many ways.
no, but in a way, you know, I think it's very easy to say, oh, I don't like it or I like it, because it's hard to read, you know. What I'm trying to say is the harder it is to read, the easier it is to dismiss in terms of that you can't involve in the discussion. And so I think to a certain degree, the cult around the innovation, the new form and so on, is a bit overrated, because what we're striving for is a form that can be read, that can be used in our lives. I think, and that's what would be my poetical vision of filmmaking, that we are in the business of making tools for debating what's real, what's going on. And so we need, I mean, every film is a model. Every film is a model for what's happening. And we need basically names and metaphors and scenes and you know, songs and whatever to be able to talk about what's happening. And that absolutely involves convention as a vessel where that helps us to see the new thing or the iteration.
In working with conventions is a very general question. Obviously, every film works in some ways with conventions, because there is still, I mean, it's not a projection of film, but it's still at least some kind of images that are coming after each other, and I mean, you have filmed them and you have set something on stage, and there are a lot of conventions anywhere, and you can't go without them. But I think what you're aiming at is more a question of a set of narrative conventions, and maybe you're going beyond that, because now this film also works with genre conventions, and that's even more than other conventions, because there are so many art house conventions as well, and there are avant-garde conventions as well. So I mean, would have to go what do you mean by working with conventions, but maybe you have a take on working with conventions as well.
Yeah, I think so. Coming back to this question before, like, are there like political or non-political films, to underline my quote from the beginning? It's like reproducing conventions is also a political position, for sure. Like, it's not non-political to like reproduce certain like gender conventions, for example. It's not like a neutraler Standpunkt or something. It's like it's a definitely a position. You take position for a certain you take a point of view on the society, and for sure it's definitely a political convention. So when you go out to cinema without a question, I guess it's your problem. It's not the problem of the film. The film is political in that way that he takes his position, and so it's a. So I would say, yeah, that's what I.
Go on. Do you want to object? Or?
Well, it's his opinion, so.
Well, do you have a different opinion?
Yeah, like I said before, I think like you need. I think every film, or I hope like a film tries to leave me back with a question, with a message, maybe just like a feeling or just something. I mean, and I think there are movies. I mean, I just saw the Werner Herzog movie. I have no idea about what he wanted to do, and maybe it's even also a question of conventions. I mean, I think to make a movie you have to use the tools, and I mean, you're trying to communicate something, and sometimes it's just...
Yeah, but if it's A to B, then you don't need to make a film, you know. I mean, because I mean, one of the most powerful things cinema can show is a face, for example. What question is a face? I mean, it's not. It's you know, it's so much more, you know.
Well, but I mean, like I just said, I don't mean like question is a very wide word. I mean, like it could be a question, it could be a feeling, it could be an emotion. I mean, like, I didn't have like a really question like after Jan's film, but it was just like I experienced something, and there was a lot of conflict in this movie, and I mean, he shifted some conventions. So I was like, after the movie, there was something going on in me.
It's maybe a little bit the controversy between you is maybe about the use of the word political, because I think politically it can be content, it can be an attitude towards any content. And I don't know who has seen the Werner Herzog film here in the audience. Raise up. It's not a shame. Okay, so you know what we are talking about, because I think that this film is, in my opinion, I think we share this, a very, very bad film, surprisingly awful film. It's
a very political film.
It's a very political film. Yeah, it's not a non-political film in a lot of terms. Yeah, you could talk about gender policy and all this starke Frauen idea of Dieter Koslik, but you could talk about as well looking at the Oriental or the Middle East, yeah, and to orientalize it and all this stuff. So maybe you wanted to add something?
I didn't see the movie.
Okay, but you have an opinion. Yeah, that's good. That's political.
Kind of. No, but for sure, no. It's just it's again the same point.
One idea behind our coining this debate controversy was a question about whether if you want to inject something political in your movies, and whether it be content-wise or perspective-wise, whether there is a need for controversy and whether that is even possible. In our opinion, or our idea behind this, was that controversies are some way of political action to manifest itself as something that touches people, because there's a very visible form of political action that has consequences on people and raises a controversy. And whether that could be something that would be needed in cinema, or maybe, maybe not.
You see, that's the problem. Please.
Inwiefern, ja, bitte.
Just try to translate it. So,
I try to translate. Ich habe nur auf Deutsch gesagt, dass es einfach darum geht, es ging um die Frage, warum, also sind kontroverse Filme notwendig, sind wie wichtig sind sie politisch, ab da, wo sie kontrovers sind, oder? Einfach das.
Also die Frage nach der...
Something about touching.
Ja, also die Idee, dass Politik sich manifestiert in Kontroversen, dass also Kontroversen eine Ausdrucksform ist von Politik, die Menschen berührt, also die etwas bedeutet für sie. Und inwiefern in dem Moment, wo, inwiefern deswegen politische Filme Kontroversen auslösen sollten oder Kontroversen gebraucht werden.
It's the opposite. I mean, every controversial film is a political film.
I don't need controversy. I don't know. I see a lot of conflict, of course. But controversy for me is more like, I mean, the first thing I think of when I hear controversy is more like a cockfight, an intellectual cockfight between equal bourgeois partners. So that's, I mean, and if you look at the history of the so-called controversial movie, it's mostly they're bad films, you know, Oliver Stone and stuff.
I think the question should be not what is bad in the so-called controversial movies. It should be, is there a good way to have controversy in movies? Yeah, that is the question we should talk about it. We have those categories here in the whole Critics Week, not to walk around the whole evening around this kind of topic. It is more to give us some ideas in which direction we could think here. It's in kind of course, a public thinking laboratory as well. I could ask you, we have other words like activism, like resistance, as well, lust. All those could be political terms, of course. What I want to know from you all filmmakers is, I guess you all would like, or maybe Florian not, would like to do political films. But what do you mean when you say this word?
I don't think I want to make political films. I just have like a name to express something and not to make a political film. I have like first is the thing I want to say, and afterwards there's a film as a medium. And I'm questioning myself at the moment if film is the right medium to do that. But so it's I think it's a little bit strange to talk about like what kind of film do we want to have? We want to have a political film, so let's make it like this and this. I don't see it this way around, or I can't think this way around.
Yeah, but I mean, why should we be afraid of making political films? Because I mean, I want to make a political film, but not for people that later say, okay, that's a very controversial film and we have to discuss. Huh? No, I want to touch people, and they should feel something. They should be irritated, or they should feel that it's. I don't know about the film should talk about. I don't know, whatever, guilt or. I mean, all the big issues, and this is political.
Maybe it is a very political point which we just have reached, that we are not able to define politics and political.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said before, I mean, every film can be discussed in political terms, but there are only very few films that engage in political questions in an interesting way. And I think what I wanted to do with this film, for example, is to question power, because I think power, especially in German cinema, is very underrepresented. I mean, for some reason, Germans believe that we are good people and do good things in the world, and everything is, institutions are fine, and I mean, this is, and that makes me mad, that people have such a naive idea of our goodness, and so it's absolutely necessary to address power in Germany. I mean, where's the money flowing to? I mean, like just give you one example. I mean, to lobby the changes in toxic waste law, which we kind of cite here. The German chemical industry alone spent 1 billion a year to prevent this to harm their business. 1 billion. I mean, this is really power. 1 billion. I mean, all of film funding, that's 300 million or something. Yeah, I mean, they spent 1 billion a year. So this is really an interest that finds ways to change, the course of the river, so to speak. And this is, I think, an interesting engagement with the question of what's political.
My question went away, but I have another one. What I wanted to say is before was that Christoph already announced it, that every film is a kind of role model, and it's more a question about complexity, and also to stay with the film, the form of the film, transparency, and that is very nice, good show, I thought. And the second thing was, I think I forgot it now. Yeah.
I'll come back.
Well, no, yeah, I come back. Yeah, because.
But anyway, everyone here in the audience is invited to ask questions or to make political statements. Yes, with the microphone, please. This is the politics of microphone.
This 1 million euro, maybe billion. Maybe it's also a reason why your film. I found it really great. It's not in the cinema, Maybe. I don't know, it's a lot of money, where it all goes, nobody knows.
Maybe they paid the money to the cinemas not to show you. But it will be in the cinemas, it has a distribution. When will it come out, Christoph?
In June, in mid-June. Yeah.
Maybe I would like, just to maybe end that, we talked about this political thing. For me, I mean, I know that the common idea is like that every film is political, but actually I'm really trying, I don't like at all this way of thinking, because if you say that, I mean, of course a political discussion is possible about everything. I mean, we can discuss about this table, how it was made, etc., etc., etc. Well, but I like I really would like to differ that there are movies where filmmakers really try to bring a political message to the audience, and they're trying to name something. And I think for me this is a difference that is really important. And also the question if this message really arrives at the audience or some people. But just that's all about that. What I like really much about your movie of Hochhäusler is that you really like named people. I mean, you named organizations and you named some complex, some systems. And I think, because what we experience now in our society, I think, is that less and less we are part of the discussions they lead. I mean, when you look when the Bundestag is deciding, like in this year, I think most of the decisions were made during the World Cup. You know, and I mean, as everybody knows, a lot of people in the German parliament, they're football fans, but there's some reason they do it during the World Cup. And I think that's a really scandal in our society. So I think we really have to start like really naming things in our movies and not just like talking about some, you know, there's some evils in power, some evil people.
I have a very cute conspiracy theory to offer here. Because every once in a while there's a discussion if we need tempo limit on German autobahns. Now I think every instant when they raise this topic, they try to cover up something. You know, because it's always like this big bubble, and then of course it doesn't happen because we depend on cars. And, you know, I mean, but it's.
But depending this your quote naming organizations and people, Christoph, what do you name there? They don't exist. No, there's a newspaper not existing. There are like politics not existing, or what is this? What is this kind of naming?
No, it's true. I'm not naming any particular existing company or order or whatever.
Yeah, Facebook. That's true.
But we even had to build our own Facebook. I mean, it's called Facebook, but it's not Facebook because for legal reasons. You know, I mean, everything is like a parallel. But I mean, pretty much everything that we show has happened in one way or the other. But of course, I mean, it could be interesting to name, you know, and to have 10 lawyers on your side. Yeah, maybe it would be.
Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I was obviously wondering why you invented, for example, the newspaper, the magazine is called Die Woche, and maybe it is. I mean, you went to Der Spiegel as one research point, but why was it important, or why was it necessary not to use names?
Well, because of course they don't want to, you know, I mean, all big companies have so-called reputation managers. With my last the film I made for cinema for Unter die Stadt, City Below, it was people who actually had these names. They read a script and say, does the company benefit, you know, if we give you, you know, our name? And of course, no. Why should they? I mean, you know, of course they don't want to do this. So, and in this case, when it's so obvious, then, because there's only one Nachrichtenmagazin, you know, then it doesn't matter if you call it the name or not.
Yeah. Now I have a question to Jan. You were shooting the Saturn market. How did you do it? You named the company.
We lied at them. I told them it's just some exercise and we want show it. But
Lies of the victors, yeah? Or the lies of the losers?
Yeah, so called.
Or whatever.
Lies of the losers I like much more.
But I mean, you don't have to name, I mean, because now you don't have to tell the names to find the parallels in our society. I mean, you don't need to drop a name to know, okay, that's NSA or that's BND, etc. I hope so.
I wanted to ask, because what you said before, so it is a very political film. You want to name things, and you yourself, you are angry about the situation. So so did you, when you show the film, do you get the feeling that people react as strongly as you wanted them to react, or is it not about reaction? The thing I said before, you know, like I want to make people feel something, like being angry about the system or whatever.
That's maybe an unfair question, you know,
Sorry.
because you know, I mean, but I never expect people to, you know, see my films and stand up and change their lives. I think.
Why not?
You know, well, because it's not my responsibility. All I can give, I think, is, or what I can hope is to sharpen the conception and the concepts of where we live and what time is it, so to speak. In everything, the consequence is a totally different matter. I don't suggest anything in my film. I don't say let's close, you know, whatever, all the industry. You know? I mean, I mean, for example, what I miss all, I mean, the prototypical art house films we all can agree on is usually like some beautiful victim. He's probably a fugitive, and he finds or she finds love, and with the help of spirited and liberal people, you know, they survive, and you know, they can overcome their trauma. But what's not the story that's not told is that if we would make this a model, be friendly to our to the victims of the world, then that our model of society would break down. You know, we live in an egotistical system. You have to. I mean, you would have to address the consequence that you would have to break the system. You wouldn't have the possibility then, you know, to be nice and friendly in this luxury way we like to depict it in the typical art house movie. I don't know.
So are you trying to say that, or I'm trying to understand what you're saying? Is it that the this consensus on some kind of prototypical characters would be our way to deflect from our responsibility for not actually caring for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always say it's not for nothing that cinema was so loved by dictators, you know, because in cinema they can cry and be a mensch, you know, and then they go on with their lives. Yeah, I mean, it's very comforting, cinema. I mean, it's really it's nice to have feelings, like you said, and you care for someone and you want to change the world, and then you go on with your life.
It's not bad to have feelings, but there is someone in the audience with a microphone.
Yeah, talking about feelings, maybe we can get a little controversial by actually talking about this gender issue. I don't know if you would want to go on with the debate you were just in, or can we switch?
No, just switch, say whatever you want.
Well, I guess my strongest reaction on your film, Christoph, was feeling really irritated about having to see this kind of woman figure again. And I'm guessing that you're consciously doing what you're doing, but I would really want to know why, because do I have to go through this again another 2 hours?
I'm sorry to make you suffer.
Yeah, you did.
But I mean, there we go. I mean, this is basically a good reaction, because I mean, when we did research, we were surprised and shocked how male-dominated the news business is, and how, I mean, like people at the magazine you mentioned before, they would describe themselves as working in a man's world where women are just not tough enough to, you know, cope with the problems. So I mean, it's really an environment that is extremely sexist.
Yes, but then the question, like, would a political reaction to this, would it be to reproduce the stereotype, or to like invent another kind of image, like create another kind of visibility for women who behave differently, because these women do exist, I mean, I know a lot of them, and I would want to pass on the microphone to the next person.
No, but I have a question first to you. Could you explain your point a little bit better?
To
Because
me?
for me, something is unclear. Would you like to have a woman in his film who is contrafactory, whatever that means, strong? I don't like it for the cosmic thing, but eine starke Frau. So a woman which is behaving contrafactory. Would you love to see this in the film?
What does contrafactory?
Gegen die Fakten, kontrafaktisch.
Aha, no, I just believe like, okay.
He's trying to show what is reality.
No, I mean basically
But
we have.
I mean, what is reality? Reality is not that like 100 women out of 100 women who work in media are like super thin, super shy, like kind of dreamy, kind of verträumt, kind of and a little bit naive, and then trying to use her naivety as a tool in her work, and then it doesn't work out after all, and she gets rained upon it. Like all these cliches that you're using. I mean, every woman I know who works in media knows very well what she's doing. I don't know what your experiences are with women who work as journalists or reporters, but
Mine is the same.
Yeah.
Yes, and then
No, I think we're coming to a very core of the question, what is a political movie? Because I think we have two kind of conceptions here, and one would be in a way a negative conception of a political film that means to criticize and to depict what is bad, and another kind of political aesthetics. And I don't know I can't really take sides because there's both good arguments probably for both sides. But I have a certain tendency to the other side. The other side would say, okay, it's a little bit the same. What you said already is like, isn't the interesting about aesthetics? Couldn't it be to invent new modes of behaving? Isn't it Charlie Chaplin? Isn't it so great? Not because it's a social drama, but because he invented a body who is able to resist to it, an aesthetic body that doesn't have to be a realistic body. We don't have to see someone who finds a realist solution to a problem, but we could defend an aesthetics who invents or to shows us that there are possibilities to resist. And my problem I would have with a negative political aesthetic is always that you get in a situation where you have the feeling there's nothing we can do. The world is bad, everyone is bad, like the characters are the sociological stereotypes that we read in the newspapers. That's reality. There's no way to breathe, and if we try to resist to it, we will be crushed. So I would ask, what do you think about that?
okay, before the answer comes, there's a third question. Maybe you had, so pass the microphone to the front, please. Nach vorn, einfach nach vorn geben.
I didn't want to speak too much because I know we have an answer waiting for the question. But I just wanted to follow up on what the woman behind me I couldn't hear or see was saying. For me, it's a question of intervention. And I think it's a question, when we talk about politics, controversy, critique, whatever it is we're doing with film, without film, I think it's a question of intervention in the sense of when you see something, or when you see something wrong, how do you intervene to change that? You said something earlier, Mr. Hochhausler, that made me a little, you mentioned responsibility. Oh, that's a great word. When you feel responsible for something or someone, or responsible to change something, I think that's the first step towards being political, or making sort of a political intervention. And my question is, I want to press you a little bit also on convention. You mentioned you're very much for convention, and that's obviously, we can see that in the film, though I love that one subversive moment that you have with Humphrey Bogart sort of coming in and making his critique. That was interesting for me. But I want to ask you about this convention in the sense that, yes, it is a vessel, but what I feel it's a vessel for is sort of hegemony and sort of the powers that be and what has been handed down to us, what we're supposed to not question and say, this is right, this is the way it should be done. So in terms of convention, it is a vessel, but what is it a vessel for? And how does it relate to the title of your film, The Lives of the Victors, The Convention of the Victors? and the lives are what they're passing down to us. So how does your belief in convention relate to the title of your film?
I don't know where to start, but maybe I can address that first, because well, I try to defend conventions. That's true, but I don't think I made a conventional movie. You know, I mean, because I mean, convention is like a very big word. I mean, what I'm striving at is visibility and to being able to read a text. You know, and that means that you have to set a certain amount of rules. I mean, to set the rules, to give you the tools as a viewer, to be able to navigate this narration, so to speak. That's not to say that there are no conventions in Jan's film or that there are no tools available, but I think that for me, I mean, my feeling was that they're rather blurry. So I mean, there are all kinds of scenes in the film of yours where I'm quite lost. You know, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I mean, in terms of when you want to depict a certain system, you might want to be more clear on that. So this is the one thing. About what I found interesting in research addressing this gender thing was that the bad side is more advanced than the good side. I mean, good side meaning like the newspapers and so on. Bad side, like the influencers, the PR industry. I mean, they eat better, they are vegans, they have more women, you know, I mean, they
and
have...
champagne, don't forget the champagne.
No, and I thought that's interesting, and that's why we thought it's interesting to show this rather in charge woman in the agency, you know, who is very much in control of what she wants and what she does, and she's probably, you know, doing all the good things except for her job, you know.
Yeah, but actually, I don't see like the point where you're questioning it. This system you show. I think it's okay. It's like a way of working, just to go on, show what is. But like there should be kind of subversive moment, or like kind of. I'm really much. I like this, like these two solutions of like, or these two ways of doing a political film, like showing like how it is and having like a utopian idea how it could be. So I'm also very much attached to the second solution, because I think I don't have a lot of energy in my life to do something. Everyone has energy. Some have more, some have less. And but you still have some energy. And my question is, why to use this little energy you have in reproducing like the shitty circumstances we are in? Like why? I just don't, I can't understand it.
Well, first of all, I have a lot of energy. And I don't think our world is shitty. I really don't. You know, I mean, of course there's a lot of things I disagree with.
That's maybe the main difference.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, but this is like an endless philosophical question.
No. We could sharp this a little bit, because I have as well a conspiracy theory. My conspiracy theory is that if people talk too much about politics, they want to avoid to talk about aesthetics in cinema. That's for the Berlinale again. So, what I want, yes, if people talk too much about politics, they want to avoid to talk about aesthetics. And my question is, if I come back to your two films, one could say, and I don't mean this as a critic, but that your film is kind of conventional. Obeying to the rules in a way, and being quite accessible. His film is not so easy accessible, at least, and maybe at least I can say I saw it today the first time. I liked it very much, but I did not get it. Yeah, why not? I will see it again. And this is a feeling I know from, for example, filmmakers like Godard, to mention one which I like, and which I think you, Christopher, know as well, like in a way.
I don't like
so, no, you don't like it. Okay, yeah, that's maybe the point. Yeah, so for me, an an important question is, why are most of the filmmakers, even the auteur filmmakers alive, not just in Germany, so uninterested in finding new aesthetics, in revolutioning, which is a political word, but as well an aesthetical word. Yeah, Hans Hurich 2 days ago said it's not about provocation, it's about revolution for him, and it's not about film culture, but about revolution. So why not do a stylistic, aesthetical revolution in cinema, at least at the film university? I don't get it.
I mean, I would just interject that there's a lot of things in Christoph's movie that is not conventional. I mean, he's working with genres.
Sorry,
No.
it's about to sharpen the discussion here.
No, I understand, but it's just too easy. I mean, obviously you brought it in, or I think Barbara brought it in, but obviously working with conventions is doesn't mean that you stay with the conventions the whole way, and obviously you're interested in subverting them and then using tools of here. I mean, this is a movie where you used a lot more music, but also, I mean, the function of music and the editing obviously is not affirmative to what your to the thriller function and to the genre functions, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot we can say about aesthetics, trying not to talk about politics, but just wanted to bring in something. One reason why we brought in Florian as well, why we asked Florian to come here, is that maybe there's also concrete political questions at hand today, and there's one right now, and it's one that was also very well questioned on the Revolver blog just today and yesterday, with great questions about how can the situation in film schools, in this film school in particular, be influenced by maybe activists, filmmakers, critics, etc., and the students themselves. For those who don't know, the question is about the new director, which has of the film school at Potsdamer Platz, the DFFB, and the process of selecting a new director, a new head, is underway without letting the students and the faculty be involved in this process, and behind closed doors. Yeah.
And may I just before we start with this, giving an answer to the last question, because it stays in connection with each other. When you ask why in film schools they don't experiment with forms, it's a very easy answer, because if you experiment forms as we do in the moment, it means that you make films as a hobby and not as a job. And that's very simple. It's very clear. You know it when you start a project like this. It's not going to be there is not going to be any kind of perspective for like earning money.
Yeah,
so,
but at the same time,
that's
you know,
the main
all the
reason. That's
films
the main
we talk about coming from your school are quite,
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
that's
taking
right.
risks and so on. I mean, to complain about that
No, it's not. It's not a problem. The
DFFB
DFFB is not the problem. That's what I try to say. I had really fights with this school. I can't say I'm a fan of this school, but still a lot is possible, because there's a big lack of domination energy. There's no director actually since 5 years, and that's the point. That's why there's a lot possible at the moment in the DFFB, and that's also why my point of view in this discussion is we don't need a director in the DFFB. The worst thing we can do is having a new director or fighting for any kind of new director. But you take the risk by yourself, that's the point. You take this risk. For sure you can experiment with forms, and some succeed to like find a way of experimenting with forms and still having like a kind of shy economical success. But I think this is really few. And when you're doing movies that are like sellable to TV, that's the only chance you have. And for sure, most of the students choose this direction because they want to have a job. So it's simple.
may I add something? So this is why I think if we want to have more political, whatever this means, films in Germany, then of course you have to deal or not deal with this system, with the TV, with the Förderung, with the fundings, and so on. And this is, I mean, this is a debate about this system. And the system starts, of course, in film schools. I know I'm teaching in the other film school in Potsdam, and I know what it means to be in this bachelor, master cage, and I know why all the interesting filmmakers in Austria were born in the times where we didn't have any professors in our film schools, and so I'm totally on your side. But I mean, of course, you cannot compare. Also, as you say, these two films you can't compare because I mean, I hope it's not a hobby filmmaking for you. But of course, you don't have to. Of course, if I make a film, a 90 minutes film, I need a lot of money, and I want the money, and I also want I want to get a high budget money maybe for my film, high budget for my film, and so I have to deal with the system. But I think really to deal, not to sell myself. And so how can we also change, we all the filmmakers here, how can we change the system? And so we have to be political in our work all the time.
There's a question, but maybe we let Florian just say a little bit to the background, to your position.
Well, I wouldn't. I speak as a filmmaker, not just like. But actually, I wouldn't say. I don't know. I don't want to start the discussion if it's better to have a director or not. But I think it's a really high demand too that you combine a content with the aesthetic form, so that functions with each other. I think really often you have a film that is really aesthetic, or really often you have a film that is more concentrated on a narration. But I think what a film school can do to open this laboratory for students is like isolating it a little bit, or protecting is the better word, protecting them from the market. And I mean, what I feel, I mean, I'm in a way much more younger year than Jan, is that at the moment I think at the film schools what we can see is that the market is coming more and more close, and even in the first 3 years of the film school you already have a feeling of competition, and you start comparing each other, and even like start to look for people in the TV you can make connections with. So I think for me it's like the mission, or like the task of a film school is really like opening this laboratory, taking some fear away from the students, and just let them do and let them try out, and hopefully in the end they can find a form. Because I think if a student is able to find his own handwriting during this time of a study, I think it will be much more easy, or I hope he will be more confident on the market later.
Yes, I agree, but I mean, which market? The market is breaking down, so you have to find the new market anyway, and you, like,
What you mean that the market is breaking down? I mean, there's so much money, and there are so many movies being made, and I mean, well, it's a was it a market before? I mean, it's still, there's funding being pumped into the movies, and there's
no, but it's hard to produce films, Frederick.
Well, I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that there is obviously there's enough money to go around, isn't there?
I mean, if we look at the cold numbers, we are producing more movies than any time before 45. I mean, since 45. So, I mean, there's obviously money. I'm not saying that there are good movies, but I mean, there's money, and the system is, of course, it's fucked. Because every system is fucked. And that's where I totally, I'm not sure if it's good to have like this bubble where everyone is free, and in this paradise you make experimental things. And then you have this brutal wake up where people say, well, we don't need it, you know. I'd rather have an institution that is open enough for you to feel the possibilities of this very strange half market, half, you know, whatever, and develop the strength to, you know, find your voice in this rather stormy or hostile environment, you know.
So there's a replique by Jan, and then it's your turn.
Yeah, just to this, back to this bubble. I think this bubble, this only option for a bubble like this would be like to give a lifelong rent to everyone who's starting to study under the FFB. What would be actually really a good idea, I must say. I would really support this idea. But there's no other way, because everyone knows what's like the formal, like, what you have to fulfill. Everyone knows from the first moment on. It's not the market that shows you if is your film working or not. I knew before I started this film that this film was gonna have a tough time on this so-called market in Germany. So
now it's on the Critics Week. Imagine.
Yeah, that's really.
Did you ever dream of that? No.
No, but
Please.
may I answer this as well? I think, like, I mean, you know, now you're talking about the bubble. Now that's really the extreme, you know. But I think what happens at the moment is just like we are studying at the school. Like there's, I call it the market. I think it's a market. Like you have these TV channels and everything. And from the beginning on, we think like, how can we work for this market? How do we fit into this market? And I think what we really need is like, be in our generation, be like we together, form teams and think about what do we want and not what do we have to do for the market. And I think that's the direction we have to take. And I think for this maybe there's some little protection we need, or some, like, at least some little shelter where we can meet, communicate and find new solutions.
We will not forget this point, but now he's waiting for a long time. Please.
Well, yeah, just a quick comment on first thing I have to say. There's lots of films at Forum Expanded and lots of art films, and the art market is also very much growing. So the kind of film you're actually making, I feel, is much more profitable now than it has been, or at least you, Jan. But my question was from before. I don't know if you want to go back to Christoph's film, which for me was an interesting point. You talking about convention helping me to focus on the main theme, or to understand the main theme better, and therefore using the conventional, I would call it conventional relationship between the journalists, and therefore understanding the conflict, the political conflict better. Did I understand right in that case? And my question is that really happening? Because in my case, I kind of feel that this relationship is a bit unreal or unrealistic, or at least the way I see journalists. I'm journalist 2015 in Berlin, and so it kind of yeah. I'm just wondering if it really helps me in that respect, this convention, and maybe you can explain a bit more why you think this less complexity, or cutting down on complexity, as I understand you right, helps to focus on the story.
No, you don't understand me, obviously. But I don't know. I mean, I can't help you. I mean, if it doesn't help you, you have to see another movie. I mean, it's as easy. I don't know what to say. I'm certainly not striving for realism. I mean, it's obviously not a realistic film. But if you think I'm striving for realism, then I don't know. What can I do to help you? You know.
Well, this comment is maybe not as broad as you take it now. It was a very, for me, specific. Well, but maybe we talk about it later then.
I think at least we have kind of two discussions, because as well I feel tempted to ask you for this last realism comment, because I have the impression it's more complicated. You're maybe not striving for naturalism, but for sure you have realist elements in your film.
Yes, of course, elements. Yeah, but I mean, it's. I mean, as I said before, I think every film is a model. It has to be a model, and it doesn't have to hide its artificiality. And I don't think that I hide this artificiality, and so on. I don't know.
But okay, maybe we come back to the bubble theory. because the general idea is that some of you are saying we need this bubble to learn our skills as filmmakers, and as well then maybe to confront reality, or to do political films, whatever. And that others were saying the bubble is bad because the real world is cold and tough, and people should learn it as soon as possible.
Why actually can't decide everyone for him or herself? I mean, this is yeah. Sorry.
I mean, maybe we have to show, like, I can, maybe I just sketch it really easy, like there's two ways we have. Like, what we can see at the moment, what's happening on our film school is that we're getting new, like, new rules of education, you know, in a way that we, yeah, I mean, I feel like you feel like a student, like a child, that you have to do this and this amount of seminars, that you have to do at least like one film per year. So, like, you know, you're surrounded by a lot of rules, and every time the argument we hear about this is like, you know, that's the way the market is working, you know, you're preparing for.
Florian, maybe, sorry for the interruption, but I think for some in the audience who are not in the details of the DFFB discussion, we could make it a bit more easy. There is a film school in Southwest called Ludwigsburg, and some people plan to make Ludwigsburg 2 out of the DFFB. So the question, to put it very easy for me, is why do we need a second Ludwigsburg when we already have one? And why do we need to trash the DFFB when we don't have a second one? Is this too simplified, or is this correct?
No, it's totally true. I think like, yeah, Ludwigsburg for me is like a university, it's a school. You know, you go there, you take courses, you take classes, and afterwards you can.
It's a good school, and
it's a really good school.
Filmmakers
Yeah.
come out of Ludwigsburg.
But I think it's really, but special about the DFFB is that we have a lot of space for discussion, or at least we are, at the moment we are fighting for having a lot of space for discussion. And I think, in my opinion, that's like the that's where political movies, to come back to your topic, are born, because in the discussion, you know, in like talking with each other and talking about movies and etc. And if you make a school, like a film, like if you do it like a school, like taking classes and giving like the students like a really strict way how to become a filmmaker, I think there's just no space to breathe and also to get to know your way of making film and also the others. Yeah.
Christoph, you, in your position as a filmmaker, obviously work with some institutions. You're out of any bubble, or maybe you found a different one. But at the same time, and I'm curious where the relationship is, and whether there's a conflict or stimulation between your other persona. You don't call yourself a critic, but you're very present, and you're taking part in discourses about filmmaking, about the possibility of filmmaking, the funding system, the TV system in Germany, and what is the relationship between those two personas? One of the filmmaker who is or trying to and not so badly working within the system, and the one who's looking at it.
Well, first of all, I don't think there's an outside. You know, I mean, but that's then theoretical discussion. But where's the outside? I mean, if you show me the way, But I never saw a big difference between thinking film and making films, and I think a mature film culture needs both ends and needs a lot of traffic in between the camps, so to speak. And in that respect, I don't see myself as a critic, but I certainly see myself as someone who engages in the discussions that affect him and are important for my filmmaking and so on. So I pursue my interests and I try to be responsible as a political being, so to speak. But I don't see the big thing about the contradiction. Are you on this side or on this side, or are you in?
I'm not saying you are. There is a big contradiction, but you surely must be aware of the anti-intellectualism that is very much part of German filmmaking industry in quotation marks, and where there's a big skepticism about talking about or criticizing or being vocal, being open and putting your name under a critique of system, and and so there might be some conflict or something, not a contradiction of two positions, but some.
Let's add something to the question. You were in the 0 years openly criticizing the Film Academy. You were openly criticizing in newspaper articles as a political being the system of film funding. Did this affect? It was quite good, I thought, what you had written. But did it in a way affect your position as a filmmaker? Did you have some troubles? Did maybe producers tell you you maybe should not have written this article or something else like this?
Well, I mean, to answer that question, I would have to live two lives, one without and one with, and then compare them. I mean, I've seen a lot of conflict, and some of it is connected to this articles or something, But well, I think I can live with it. So I don't know. What to say.
Sorry, about the market, I just wanted to say, when I said that the market is breaking down, I mean, the market is not that there is money by funds. This is not the market. The market is that people want to see your movies, that they don't only want to see the movies that are funded, and so on, and also that the TV, I mean, I think only Germany will keep the state TV very, very long, but the rest of the world, it doesn't exist anymore, so it will change, and I think we should be aware of this. This is what I meant about the market.
I have a question for you, Barbara.
Yes,
again.
please.
Yes, because we invited you for a lot of reasons, but one is that you come from Austria.
Yeah, this is
Is
also,
there something
Yeah.
we could maybe, because surprisingly, Austrian filmmaking is very good and much better than German filmmaking overall, I think. Maybe that's a wrong impression. But at least
Yeah.
you seem... Yeah.
Yes, first of all, because the whole funding system is totally different. You don't need the TV station to ask for money. You don't need a distributor to ask for money at the funds. So, and it's a cultural funding.
So what do you need? An open hand, of course, but what else?
No, I mean, of course you need the script and so on. I mean,
Okay.
but it's the opposite around. It is a cultural funding. It is the chance for Germany, if this TTIP comes, no one wants it, but if it comes, then Germany would have to say that the fundings will be cultural fundings, and this will be a chance maybe to change the whole film system.
So
I don't know.
filmmakers should be in favor of TTIP?
Of course not, but I mean,
But at the same time, already today the funding system is labeled as cultural, and it is already, the main funding is accepted by the European Union as being a cultural funding, even though obviously it's not. So.
But I mean, it can't be.
It's just a label.
Yeah, but it can't be a real cultural funding if it's depending on the TV station and the distributors.
Well, that's what you say, but the legal advisors
Okay.
are able to defend it as being cultural.
Anyway, but this is the big difference. I mean, this is it's the only thing I'm saying. This is the big difference. If you need a TV station and a distributor, then of course it's a different situation. And of course, Austria is a small country. It's very difficult to compare. But I think it's also because, there is more freedom. There is more freedom.
Would we get more political movies if TV stations didn't have to agree on the projects being made in Germany?
I don't know.
But I think it would be faster. This is one thing. I mean, it needs so many years to get money for your film here that I think this is also, it's a matter of energy. I mean, you were talking about energy. I mean, if you have an idea, because right now you have a political situation in your film school, maybe you want to make political films now. Hopefully, this is like everything. Like if it's Pegida, if it was the change in the 0 years in Austria, the whole right, the turn to the right party, and so on. The political situation of a country makes you be a more political person, and then you want to make films, and then you have an idea and you want to shoot. And then if then it needs like 2, 3, 4 years, I mean, to get the film finance, it's a problem.
But that's more like a question of how the system has become, you know, and not a question of TV versus film. Because I mean, if you look at the new German film of the 70s, which I, for parts at least, worship, and the experiment that was made at the time, it was all TV funded. You know, I mean, Fassbinder without VDR wouldn't, you know, he would have made half the films.
But it was a different TV.
Yes.
Yes, but I would say
there's a comment here in the audience.
Yeah, I also wanted to say exactly the same, that there is a much different TV today. But I really liked your point, Barbara, about the cultural fundings, and I would like to connect the two topics about the universities and this. And I would like to ask, why can't we look at the film school as a cultural funding instead of a bubble? I mean, it's not definitely a controversy, but I also think that the impact of TV channels and these implanted conventions in the education absolutely affect the innovativeness, the innovativity among the students. I'm also a student at the DFFB, I have to say, and I think this school it has a different profile, and it's totally important for the German cinema as well to promote the diversity in the landscape, and I think that's there is the connection point when you think about it. Okay, it's an art of cultural funding, and that's what leads there. That of course not every Jan Bachmann will survive on the market, but if the DFFB fulfills this function of it, that to being an effective labor, then it leads maybe the German cinema into more interesting directions, and there will be some Jan Bachmanns who really can change something. And in this point I don't agree with you, Jan. I think a director is a good chance for a school. Of course, the traditions of the school and the very strong political aspect of the DFFB was always very important, but a good director has a lot of good chances in it, and yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, just that there I have I found a really nice answer for me, because I was thinking about who could be a good director, and I realized I came to the DFFB because it had a really good filmmaker as director. Hartmut Pitomski was really one of the most important filmmakers for me, and he was director, and he completely failed on the school in this position. Really completely. After 3 years he was gone because of healthy reasons, and definitely he made big mistakes. I don't know, but he had a point. He had a concept, and I think that was the problem. And Jan Schütte, 4 years, no concept at all, on no level, not socially, no politically. Yeah, maybe a concept, but a very opportunistic concept. And he was there for 4 years, and after 4 years, okay, no one liked him in school, really no one anymore, but he really rised up. Now he's the leader of the biggest film academy in the world, and it was really a success, big success for him. So should we come to the point in this moment, really thinking seriously about this position? What is this position? What can it be? Isn't it exactly in that way that if you have really a concept or a political Haltung, it's a problem. It's a big problem to lead this school because you have Angriffsfläche and the stupid students, they will shoot on this Angriffsfläche definitely, in the most reactionary way. It's like this. It's really sad, but it is like this. And wouldn't it like be better to have no director, have like a curatorium or like a redaction of students that are paid because there is a lot of money and going to this shitty director, and it would be really different if there could be like just when I have the chance to talk, I talk.
I want to relieve you. Is here still anyone who needs English translation? Because maybe. Dann können wir nämlich, das ist ja sowieso ein bisschen. Also mach mal weiter, aber nicht die ganze Zeit die FFB-Geschichte erzählen.
Nee, ich habe auch nicht mehr dazu zu sagen. Es ist einfach genau dieser Punkt. Also weshalb braucht man einen Führer? Also wieso braucht man immer wieder einen Führer, wenn man diese Erfahrung macht, dass ein Führer einfach in die Lehre führt. Also, und da braucht es einfach mehr Selbstbewusstsein von den Studenten zu sagen, wir können das selber, weil wir können das wirklich selber.
Ich würde gerne zu dieser Fernsehdiskussion zurückkommen. Jetzt habe ich den Satz schon auf Englisch im Kopf.
Übersetzen.
Nein, aber was ich interessant finde, ist ja eigentlich, dass, also ich mache meine ersten Schritte als Filmemacher gerade, und weil wir vorhin über Konventionen gesprochen haben, der erste Ort, wo ich gerade an Konventionen treffe oder wo die eingefordert werden von mir, sind letztendlich die Redakteure, sind die Fernsehsender. Da erlebe ich das, ich habe noch nie von der Förderung erlebt, bisher auf jeden Fall, dass man da so streng war, aber es sind letztendlich die Redakteure, gerade im Dokumentarfilm, die mir erzählen, wenn ein Film nicht so und so aufgebaut ist, dann würde den keiner verstehen und dann würde den auch keiner gucken wollen. Und deswegen ist es, finde ich, sehr, sehr wichtig eigentlich, gerade in dieser Filmschule, auch zu gucken, dass man davor noch geschützt ist, also dass man in diesen ersten Jahren eben nicht schon sich an diese Konvention oder eben an diese komische Meinung von irgendwelchen Redakteuren orientieren muss, sondern sich eben ausprobieren kann.
Entschuldige, aber musst du mit den Redakteuren arbeiten am Anfang? Also ich meine, oder brauchst du das Geld auch schon während der Studienzeit? Das ist einfach die große Frage. Brauchst du schon, geht nicht anders. Ich meine, also das ist nur, weil einfach irgendwie stellt sich schon auch die Frage, ob man nicht dann sagt, okay, dann nehme ich das Geld nicht, also ich bin immer mehr dafür, dass man entweder sagt, okay, jemand macht einen konventionelleren Film, kriegt dafür irgendwie Sendergeld und der andere macht einen unkonventionelleren und dann versucht die Schule da möglichst viel reinzugeben, ja, weil quasi das Unkonventionellere da gefördert werden muss, wie im Sinne dieser kulturellen Förderung, ja, wo ich es halt in der Hand habe, wo ich in einer Schule bin, wo ich sage, okay, da kann ich halbwegs irgendwie die Gelder selbst bewegen. Das war so eine Idee, die wir jetzt innerhalb unserer Hochschule diskutiert haben, um da mehr Freiheit zu lassen, weil es schon erschlägt natürlich, ja, wenn du so früh dann irgendwelche Regeln zu hören kriegst und dich eben nicht entwickeln kannst.
Aber so ist es auch. Also es ist genauso. Es gibt natürlich ein Budget für die Filme und damit kann man auch arbeiten. Ich meine nur, es ist halt eine Frage der Haltung, also ob man sozusagen bereit ist, seine Zukunft aufs Spiel zu setzen oder nicht. Also das ist es halt einfach. Ich finde es einfach dumm, darum immer so herumzusprechen. Ich glaube, das ist der Kern. Also da kann man noch so eine Blase oder einen geschützten Raum oder irgendwas haben, weil schlussendlich kommt es ja drauf an, ob man das riskieren möchte oder nicht, beziehungsweise wofür, weil das weiß ich auch nicht. Also bei meinem Fall ist es einfach so, dass ich für nichts anderes irgendwie halbwegs Leidenschaft aufbringen kann. Ich kann nicht einfach die Form reproduzieren und mich dafür begeistern.
Aber da muss man ja vielleicht auch über Film und über Kunst sprechen. Also ich fand es ein sehr interessantes Thema oder eine sehr interessante Frage, die du vorhin gestellt hast. Du hast gesagt, ich habe diesen Film gemacht und ich wusste, den sieht keiner. So hast du vorhin oder wird fast niemand sehen. Dann ist ja auch die Frage,
würde es schwer haben, dass der Film es schwer haben würde.
Aber das ist ja auch die Frage, wen will ich denn mit diesen Filmen? Will ich, dass die gesehen werden? Will ich, dass die bei mir zu Hause in der Box bleiben?
Natürlich will ich, dass die gesehen werden. Das ist ja nicht die Frage, also natürlich. Also den Filmemacher möchte ich sehen, der nicht möchte, dass seine Filme gesehen werden. Also ich glaube, das gibt's nicht. Also, das ist ja immer, dann wird immer so getan, als ob das irgendwie, also ob man willentlich nicht möchte, dass die Filme gesehen werden. Natürlich möchte ich, dass meine Filme gesehen werden. Das ist gar keine Frage. Aber ich weiß sozusagen, dass sie es schwer haben werden, wenn ich sie so mache. Nur kann ich sie halt einfach nicht anders machen, das ist das Problem. Vielleicht würde ich sonst halt auch Filme machen, also die konventionellere Formen irgendwie bedienen und halt eben auch vom Fernsehen aufgekauft werden können. Das ist natürlich attraktiv. Aber wenn ich mir Filme aus den 70er Jahren angucke tatsächlich, die mich begeistern und die im Fernsehen liefen, also es ist nicht so, dass, also wenn man sich die grundsätzliche Frage stellen muss, bin ich das Problem oder ist das System, in dem ich Filme mache, dann würde ich natürlich nicht beantworten, ich bin das Problem. Also diesen Punkt möchte ich nicht überschreiten, weil da wird man krank. Und das ist, also, und da wird man natürlich schon auch systematisch in so einer Filmhochschule hingetrieben, zu dem Punkt, sich einzugestehen, dass man halt krank ist. Also, und diesen Punkt, den möchte ich nicht erreichen.
Nein, aber eigentlich, ich glaube auch, dass das eigentlich das Problem ist. Das Problem ist doch auch, dass ein Fernsehen mit seinen Konventionen, zu denen es letztendlich die Leute zwingt, die dafür arbeiten wollen, natürlich auch gewisse Sehgewohnheiten einfach prägen. Und wir letztendlich auch darunter leiden, dass Leute nicht mehr daran gewöhnt sind, anders zu gucken oder ein bestimmtes Publikum.
Das sind aber verschiedene Debatten. Also, dass das Fernsehen seine Interessen hat, das ist ja erstmal legitim. Ihr habt ja auch eure Interessen. Die Frage ist, warum die zusammengehen müssen. Alleine schon, warum man keine Filme machen kann ohne Fernsehförderung. Das ist ja das eigentlich, was Barbara Albert eben meinte, dass man dieses System umdrehen könnte. Und in Österreich ist es, glaube ich, sogar so, dass Filme unter bestimmten Umständen aufgekauft werden müssen vom Fernsehen. Oder täusche ich mich da? Wenn die bestimmte Förderungen bekommen haben? Mit
so
Mikro. Mit Mikro ist drin.
Also, nee, so ist es auch wieder nicht. Nein, also,
Nee.
aber trotzdem, also neue Vertriebsformen zum Beispiel, finde ich, deswegen habe ich das zuerst gesagt, mir mag, das ist schon eine wichtige, auch politische Überlegung von allen, die heute Filme machen oder eben in Filmschulen sind, weil wie können sie an diesen Konventionen eben vorbei, wie können sie am Fernsehen vorbei? Und da wird halt eben jetzt im Moment halt auch alles aufgekauft, Internet wird auch alles schon, machen sich auch alle Leute schon aus, wie wir nichts davon haben werden, dass unsere Filme...
Naja, aber das ist doch irgendwie auch ein problematischer Punkt, weil sozusagen seit der Geschichte der Menschheit gehört zur Gesellschaft Regeln, Konventionen. Und da gibt es halt immer Abweichungen, so verändert sich Gesellschaft, sonst gäbe es gar keine Veränderung. Und für die Abweichungen sind natürlich Randgruppen zuständig wie Künstler. Nicht der Mainstream, sonst wäre es ja keine Abweichung. Und die haben es natürlich schwer abzuweichen, das ist auch immer so. Also dass im Grunde die Abweicher noch Förderung von der Gesellschaft fürs Abweichen kriegen sollen, also von den Leuten, die sie eigentlich ablehnen, das ist ja ein Paradox.
Absolut.
Und das ist natürlich ein sonderbares, im 20. Jahrhundert ausgebildetes sozialdemokratisches Modell. Vorher hat es das nicht gegeben. Es muss nicht falsch sein, aber man muss sich mal klar machen, dass es ein absoluter Sonderweg ist und dass vielleicht jeder... Da geht es ja schon los, wenn man sich an der Filmhochschule bewirbt, dann muss man ja Regeln einhalten. Also die wahren Anarchisten werden doch da gar nicht angenommen, sondern die machen das halt irgendwie selber, gibt es ja auch.
Gibt es auch immer mehr, aber deswegen meine ich eben auch, dass diese neuen Vertriebsformen wir uns im Moment tatsächlich auch gerade wieder wegnehmen lassen von irgendwelchen Plattformen, die irgendwo sitzen und sich das schon längst ausgeschnappt haben, wie sie Europa verteilen. Aber ich meine, da müssten eigentlich wir versuchen, irgendwie auch reinzukommen.
Nee, aber weiter zu Ende reden, nicht?
Ja, nee, aber ich habe schon alles gesagt. Ich wiederhole mich.
Um nochmal zurückzuführen auf den wunderbaren Film von Herrn Hochhäusler, der ja auch im Kontext Zusammenarbeit mit dem WDR, Arte und Arte France Cinema entstanden ist und diversen Förderern. Vielleicht können Sie, Herr Hochhäusler, kurz davon erzählen, wie man mit so einem Buch, mit einer scheiternden Hauptfigur, mit so einem Sender spricht. Also wie gehen die auf so einen Stoff zu? Und wie argumentiert man das? Gab es überhaupt Einwände dagegen? Musste es verteidigt werden oder haben Sie eine andere Position mittlerweile dort, Stoffe anders durchzusetzen? Oder gab es diesen Drang, diesen Wunsch nach Konvention seitens der Sender oder wie ist man ihnen dort begegnet?
Naja, man hat es ja mit Menschen zu tun. Man versucht ihnen zu erzählen, was man machen will. Und wenn man daran glaubt, und der Funke überspringt, dann kann man das machen. Also ich meine, es ist jetzt nicht, also ich sehe ja diese Front, die Jan hier sieht, nicht so. Also ich meine, natürlich gibt es da viel Angst und Angst zu scheitern auf beiden Seiten und so weiter. Ich glaube ja, dass diese Sehnsucht nach Regeln im Film viel damit zu tun hat, dass der Film so regellos ist. Das ist ja auf eine Art, eigentlich kann man auch einfach nur das Empire State Building filmen. Ja, also man kann alles machen, man kann eine blaue Leinwand, also es ist schon ein ziemlich weites Feld, das Kino. Kurz und gut, aber nein, also ich musste niemanden bestechen, ich musste auch nicht lügen, sondern das meinte ich auch vorhin mit der Gefahr der Blase. Ich glaube, es ist ganz wichtig, dass wir selbstbewusst und überzeugend sind gegenüber denen, die uns das ermöglichen sollen, was wir machen. Und natürlich ist das manchmal schwierig. Also es gibt natürlich viele Leute, die mit mir keine Filme machen wollen oder sich das auf keinen Fall vorstellen und so weiter. Ja, also natürlich. Man muss eben Leute finden, die man überzeugen kann, die dann eine Fantasie haben, die irgendwo eine Schnittmenge bildet. Und die gibt es. Also ich meine, es ist ja ein relativ großes System, also da würde ich jeden ermutigen, das zu versuchen. Also
Ja, da hinten.
Aber das hat doch an einem gewissen Punkt dann auch weniger mit Mut als auch mit dem Namen zu tun, oder? Also dass man dann natürlich auch leichter Förderung bekommt. Ist das nicht so?
Womit, mit dem Namen und mit was noch? Ich hab's nicht
Also
verstanden.
jetzt in Bezug auf den Inhalt dieses Stoffes und in der Relation zur Förderung dieses Filmes jetzt an diesem Beispiel.
Also ich kann nicht beurteilen, wie groß mein Name ist. Also das ist nicht mein Eindruck, dass der so groß ist, dass ich gar nichts mehr tun muss. Aber mein Eindruck ist ohnehin, dass es sehr oft gar nicht darum geht, was ist das für ein Stoff, sondern wer bist du im Sinne von, überzeugst du mich? Also ich meine, ich habe relativ selten, also zu meinem Bedauern eigentlich, von Anfang an, ich spreche jetzt überhaupt auch von meinen allerersten Filmen und so weiter, relativ selten inhaltliche Auseinandersetzungen, sondern meistens geht es darum zu sagen, trauen wir das dem zu? Ja? Riskieren wir nicht zu viel, wenn wir dem was geben? So, also es ist immer Angst, einen Fehler zu machen. Dem muss man eher begegnen. Die inhaltlichen Debatten halten sich echt in engen Grenzen. Also das ist jedenfalls meine Erfahrung.
Außerdem hattest du ja irgendwann, wie jeder, auch mal einen ersten Film gemacht und der war, glaube ich, auch schon ein kleines Fernsehspiel, ne? Milchwald? Ja. Und war dann hier im Forum der Berlinale. Also das hat ja auch irgendwie geklappt, oder wie?
Ja, das hat lange gedauert und so weiter und die waren todunglücklich mit dem Film. Ja, nee, klar.
Aber die Franzosen waren glücklich.
Ich denke, dass wir mit der Angst schließen können. Also die Angst, die grassiert und dass wir versuchen, ein bisschen was gegen sie zu machen und hoffentlich das auch in Zukunft noch weiter tun können. Vielen Dank an Sie alle, vielen Dank an die Teilnehmer und die Regisseure und hoffentlich bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss.
Ja genau, es gibt eine